super straight social media phenomenon. I shared a link of this article to y'all, and essentially, what I've observed and what I've read up on is that there's this new movement of, shall we say, straight identifying individuals, cisgendered. It's important that we designate them also as cisgender to identify themselves as super straight. Excuse me. They've adopted this color scheme that remarkably looks the same to be the Pornhub color scheme. You can make all kinds of jokes about that. And some of the memes have been incredibly distressing. I know I posted one meme where it showed essentially a kid saying I'm super straight, and a trans person with trans colors approaching that kid, seemed to bully, and then a pair of super straight individuals there to protect the kid. I legitimately believe that this is another move to marginalize, if not bring about outright aggression towards our trans brothers and sisters. And there's also the fact that 4chan has taken this and run with it. They've made no two ways about it that, super straight SS and this whole fashy undertones. What are your guys' thoughts on this issue?
I would really like to take this opportunity to go on one of my favorite rants, which is the problematic nature of the etymology of the word straight in the context of sexuality. Um, the word is largely believed to be coined by a Christian scientist who, George W. Henry, in the book Sex Variants, where he referred to that was when he referred to heterosexual people as the word straight. And for a while now, I've been trying to.
Well, real quick, you mentioned Christian Scientist, and if that's not a bigger paradox or contradiction, I don't know what is.
Right, and it's been problematic for throughout the course of American history, obviously with like eugenics and such.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've been going on this rant now for like a couple of years now. Basically, I think the word straight as a synonym for heterosexuality is problematic. I think obviously it has implications. It implies that that queer people are sort of crooked or what have you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like this is it's a perfect opportunity to talk about that because obviously super straight is obviously trying to like to really play into that implication. So just one of my favorite pet rants. But also, yeah, I mean, it also sort of it brings up that conversation around like the problematic nature of like dating apps and like so there's so much transphobia and racism on dating apps. And I guess, yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of like casually accepted in a lot of social circles that I've observed. I think it's weird to say that you won't date a whole group of people. I don't really understand. I mean, I understand here it's transphobia and it's antagonism, but I think that a lot of well-meaning people co-opt that language, and I do think it's weird to say something like I won't date trans people or I won't date Asian people or what have
Mm-hmm.
you. It's not necessary. Like people can observe who you date. You don't need to disqualify a whole group of people, like especially because like you don't know, like you haven't met every single trans person, so how
Yeah,
can you even know?
you want, if anything, to like just mention if there's certain features you find attractive or not as attractive. That's the furthest extent that should ever go.
I actually feel
Um,
we'd be beating around the bush with that, I think, though.
hmm,
I mean,
Not really. It's okay to
I,
be like, it's okay to say what attracts you and doesn't attract you, right? But when you're saying you're canceling out a whole group or ethnicity, even worse, because they're that group or ethnicity, then there's something else underlying that you want to talk to your therapist about.
and as a as a brown person, I'm immediately sensitive to the idea of a person saying, well, I prefer this racial group over another, basically, and that's certainly you certainly see parallels when people say, well, I wouldn't date a trans person. I would agree with you, David, that it's myopic at best, basically, to say I wouldn't date X, because it's like, have you even met somebody from that group? Or maybe somebody from that group exists within your social circle. You either don't know or they haven't told you, essentially.
Um, so if just to harken back to the super straight topic a little again, so I find so I understand where you guys are saying it's problematic and hurtful. Definitely seems to be at least the intent for some people on this, but it seems to me almost like it's just so ripe for clowning that you, I I wonder if that's like the one second. Well, go away. I wonder if that's the intent behind it. So for example, yeah, like if you're going to be straight, that's one thing, you're heterosexual. But to be super straight, what is something super straight? Right? How many metaphors can we work with here, right? Yeah, you're so
Yeah.
straight, dude. You are so straight. You are as straight as your cock in my mouth, hands down, right?
I
Oh my
would,
Like,
God.
I would want
like,
to, I would.
Mercy.
Oh no, Isaac, if you have thoughts.
Oh no, I'm just saying things, but I'd prefer one thing. Let's remember that this is just a bunch of memers on a forum just like causing trouble.
That's
Like
true.
at the end of the day, I mean, like the same thing. The principle holds when it comes to dealing with the troll. Don't like take it too serious. Don't, the moment you start reposting and talking about it and turning, you're feeding the troll basically,
I
and it only
understand.
gets worse.
I
And
would.
critically analyzing, I'm so sorry to cut you off. Critically analyzing um, a mean-spirited joke, I think inadvertently makes it more powerful and gives the desired effect to those who had caused it. That's just my opinion.
To Steve's earlier point about how far are we sure that this isn't just one elaborate joke, or do people sincerely believe it? I would like to say that Poe's law is an MFer. Okay, yeah. And for those
Yeah.
who listening who don't know, Poe's law essentially states that that the line between a really elaborate joke and sincere propaganda, it's so it's blurry at that point. There might as well not
Mm.
even be a line. So as far as I'm concerned, like, we've reached this point in our discourse and in our politics, to where even if the original intender made it as a joke, however sincere they might be, somebody's going to grab that and run with it in another
Oh
direction.
no, I don't mean to say that this was a sincere joke. As like this was a meme created on 4chan, literally made like they're
Right.
messing around with the colors on the forums. They're like, hey, look, super straight. It's like the lightning bolts for the SS, but it's two S's, super straight. Don't you see? It's
Yeah.
like
I
it
get
isn't
that.
meant to be a nice sort of it's trolling, but like I mean, I don't think trolling.
Yeah, I just feel it's even if there are people that get away with
Yeah.
utilizing it as a reason to bully others, it's so much more valuable as something to goof on
Mm.
homophobic Nazis with. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's really it makes them look dumber. It makes them look goofier. Just
Don't you?
slapping it on there, like, yes, just like super straight. How much straighter can you get? Like, just tug on that rope even harder, make it more straight.
It
You
will.
know,
Yeah, I
keep
will say
tugging,
one thing.
keep
That's very
tugging, straight
interesting.
man.
Have you ever noticed how, like, like the most homophobic people are sometimes the ones with the most homoerotic tendencies in whatever they do and going forward? For
Um.
some reason, when it comes to all the the fashy people, for some reason they're always obsessed with anime and the what's it called? It's in the and the what is it called? There's always a strange tendency that far right wing people are the ones that always end up like coming out and like, oh well, there's this feminine Japanese boy that's my
Yeah.
avatar, and it's like, oh dear.
Now, that's a subgenre of anime called yaoi, boys love. Kind of outing myself as a former otaku here. Uh, but one thing that I do want to also bring up is that I wouldn't push that whole thing about how the most homophobic people are often the most probably have some kind of unresolved issues because
Oh no,
on
I said it's an interesting tendency. I didn't mean to imply
it
that there is
is.
a.
But one thing that I kind of observed, I remember a whole bunch of SNL jokes about, oh, isn't it weird how close Trump and Putin are to each other? Is there something? Are they gay basically? And it's almost like as much as they're trying to, they think that they're sticking it to Putin, who has been led essentially violence against LGBTQ people in Russia. It's also when you swing it around, it's almost like, well, they have this, oh, gay people are kind of violent towards each other or do this kind of thing. Basically, you can't help it, and I think that it's kind of dangerous to not that I'm saying that you shouldn't, but it's like be a little careful about talking in that kind of thing,
The
basically.
Trump Putin meme, speaking on behalf of all gay people ever. Yeah, I did take issue with the Trump Putin meme because it was playing on like the whole idea that like homosexuality is a punchline and it's
Hmm.
funny and it's like
Yeah.
we still haven't kind of moved past that in our sort of, even in progressive circles, we still haven't moved past this idea of like it's funny.
But
And like like it happens to me often enough. Like people will make jokes about like even people who are like cool with gay people, they'll say something like, "Oh, wouldn't it be funny if like I made out with a dude or something?" And I'm just like, I don't see why that would be funny. Like it's
Don't you
what's the
get it?
punch?
It's like me, a guy.
It's like what's the
What's
punchline?
going on here?
Yeah, it's
so
like what's the punchline? I don't understand. Which I
I would
do
just
understand,
say,
which is culturally we're coming into like being comfortable with all this. But I do think that's like symptomatic, yeah, of like a sort of
What's up,
lingering.
Steve?
I would just say that, like, that's where you want to push it just that one cycle more. Like the point is no longer to say that homosexuality is weird and odd and out of the box. The point now is to say, look at these homophobes, so afraid, so scared of something so like simple as a cock in their face, right? It's just why are people so scared of sex? Why are people so scared of this one aspect of human anatomy? You can push on so many fronts to just go that one extra mile of like, yes, they're they're into cock and you're afraid of it.
I
What's
think it's
that?
very. I mean,
How important is, like, I'm straight. I don't have
yeah.
to go out of my way to make it known to the world, which is why I don't care. That's why I doubled down to a reference of what somebody's cock being in my mouth. I don't care. I think it's funny. I'm a big Kevin Smith fan through and through, so I love all that grunge humor.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know really what the issue is. I mean, it's the fact is that it is viewed, generally speaking, amongst a good portion of the population that this somehow isn't a frontier masculinity. That you're somehow you're not what is it called? It's quite a man. If this were to occur to you, you're lesser than others. And what revolts, what's revolting in that for them is that they feel as if that they're now lesser than what they really are. And this is why they react so poorly. Because no, I'm not one of those. I'm not one of those. What's their calls? It's this tough guy. There you go. And it's like
Um, quick.
that's just such a corrosive mentality that a society can maintain to
It,
force half of the population to constantly be in fear of losing some sort of status
mhm.
amongst themselves. It's crazy.
I feel like
And
attitudes towards homosexuality, it's like one of the things they got right in ancient Greece. Like I've been reading about ancient Greece and I'm just like, damn, they got this right. Like there was no terms for like gay, straight, or bi. It was just understood like people just slept with. Who they slept
It's
with.
I know a Greek man who always he's problematic AF, but like he always says no. You see, in Greece, it is a very specific thing. It's the man doing the penetrating that is the normal one. It's like, no, hold on a moment there.
and I would like to point out that Greek, when we talk about the whole ancient Greek perspective on homosexuality, let's say that there's a reason why the word pederasty was invented by them, basically.
Right. I wanted to be very specific in terms of attitudes towards homosexuality because
Right.
Right.
they obviously had sex
That was
slavery.
50% better than what we got now.
So, I would also like to state along with Steve that I also identify as straight. I'm comfortable enough in my identity to where that I don't go out of my way, or when I see something like this, I'm like, what the hell? Are you compensating for something? You're sounding a little, not anybody here, but the person who would say something like this, is super straight thing, seems like they're insecure about something, basically. And I would like to add that I think that this sort of meme, or this sort of whatever comes about it, should be met with utter derision. And if any antagonism comes out from this, it should be called out and just taken, call them out and ensure that put a stop to this shit, basically.
The best thing to do in when it comes to this sort of thing is just not to talk about it, so that it goes away, because then
That's
people
true.
will stop
Also,
perpetuating it.
I really want to say too, since I sort of like centered myself in this conversation, this is like a very specific sort of a lob on trans people. And so I do think like I do think it's important to acknowledge that, and to acknowledge that like trans people have been thrown under the bus even by like the LGBT movement.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so it is really important, like Ruben said, it's important that we protect trans
Oh, yeah.
people, and that we stand up for them, and that we don't let them be used as a bargaining chip, which is what I feel like the dynamic kind of is now, is that conservatives are kind of like, okay, we'll be cool with gay people, but trans people, and we're not cool with them. And to me, like, that's not okay. And like, to me, it's like definitely like, an all of us or none of us mentality. So yeah,
Moving the
it's
goalposts.
definitely
Exactly.
important to protect and stand up for trans people.
Just be a decent person,
Yes.
That's we don't have to make it so complicated. Just be a decent person. Come on.
Right. Yeah.
I would
Jesus
say,
Christ.
I would say
Is it
this,
so hard?
it's the old joke that everybody's a little bit racist. Well, I would add to it, you don't have to say it. You don't have to express it, basically.
Listen, I've watched Avenue Q too, and I can say
Well, I mean,
everybody's a little bit racist sometimes.
Well, so I think what it is people are naturally going to try and categorize. That's a sad fact of the human condition, is we try to make generalizations out of groups, because we're constantly fighting from group to group. The reality now, though, is that we have an opportunity to unite as one group, like one human entity. We don't have to be multiple groups fighting over who gets power. We can actually just go with humanity first and actually unite collectively, collaboratively, in the best way that we can possible with these strategies that have been selected for us, right? So
honestly, I think that we all Americans really at the core can get along with pretty much anybody within our country, except for people from Ohio or Mexicans. It's wonderful. I mean, we could.
So I just want to finish my point. My point was also to say the thing that people are doing, or the this group mentality, this analysis of these other people being the outsiders or the difference or the weirds. What needs to happen is more emphasis on, okay, but who the fuck are you? And don't you understand human empathy? So it's not so much like just be a decent person. Try to see from another person's perspective. Try to get into their head and understand them. Because if you don't, they're going to be the ones that figure you out first. And then where are you going to be? Like, how is that an advantage? Just be empathetic, understand people, hear them out.
Confrontation is a very difficult sort of thing, though, I
It
must
is.
admit, because I mean, approaching that in such a manner, I mean, when you sort of put the ball in the other person's court, and they look at you and it's like, what, are you trying to say that I'm an awful person? And
Yeah.
then they shut you out entirely.
And
Well,
I
that's
do
half
know.
the problem with this country nowadays, is that most people, when it comes to all these issues, they think, oh well, you know, you think I'm a bad person? Well, F you. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to do whatever I was going to do beforehand.
And I would also like to add in is that, you know, that's the peril with social media. As much as we put ourselves out there, we also have to realize that on the other side, you know, in real life, this person might be a completely different person, or at the very least maybe open to discussing or coming to a common ground.
Oh.
And for what you said about all people uniting, Steve, we have a word for that, and it's called solidarity. And I sincerely believe in solidarity. I believe that we can find common cause in other people, but who genuinely want the best for others. I identify as a socialist for that reason. You know, I can take an educated guess that we might not all identify with on different points of the leftism spectrum. Certainly, Steve, you don't identify as a leftist at all, but I do believe that solidarity is something that can reach beyond sort of political titles and the such, basically.
Yeah. Well, like,
And
just to respond to that real quick, you know, saying you're a socialist, it's another label, for example. And this is just as a per example,
right.
not shaming
Yeah.
it, but it's like all of these labels. Why are we so obsessed with the labels? Why not at least put one label first and foremost, and that is that you are human. You and I, no matter who you are out there, we have that in common. We are stupid apes. I mean,
I
that's
get
what
you.
it comes down to.
I would say to that is that, you know, I use the label of socialist so that I can find common cause with not just other socialists, but other people who might be who might find common cause with socialists.
Yeah, I'm not shaming it. I wasn't shaming it at all.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring my perspective on this. But any closing thoughts on this topic of the?
Well, I just wanted to like come, you know, add my 2 cents to that. Like, I actually agree with you, Steve, to a certain extent. I don't like to give myself labels. Well, for 2 reasons. One, because I don't want to have to defend any particular thing that, oh well, you think that, you know, you're a this, therefore you must. You know, I don't want to go through that whole business. But also because I think it would be insulting to my own personhood to sort of, you know, put me off into this bracket or that bracket. You know,
Mhm.
I'm a guy. I'm the combination of everything. You know, of all my experiences, and I would like to be judged on that basis as opposed to any other.
Now, to wrap it up, any final thoughts on the super straight thing? David, do you have any final thoughts?
I mean, I think what came to mind towards the end there when we were talking about communicating with people who we don't see eye to eye with, I was really thinking about Jonathan Haidt's book, uh, 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 The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. And Jonathan Haidt's a social psychologist, and he kind of talks about the psychology behind, liberalism and conservatism. But I think there's a lot to be gleaned from his insights into how people are oriented towards morality and things like that. So those are kind of my closing thoughts, I guess.
And I would like to add, you know, I certainly agree with Steve. You know, be good to each other. Have some basic empathy, and you know, have some basic empathy towards your fellow man, and be good to each other. That's how I would my final thoughts on this matter, basically. And so I think that kind of does it. We've recorded a little bit over an hour. I just want to say to everybody, thanks for attending this little unnamed project of ours.
Name
Hopefully,
pending.
name pending.
Name
That's right.
bending, yeah.
Name pending for this little project. I sincerely hope that we can develop something regular out of this. And yeah. So yeah. Thanks everybody, and I hope to do this again. And thanks to our listeners and viewers as well.
Thanks for
Thank
watching.
you.
Thank you.